the blowback from a bunch of scolds on Twitter at SNL.
I like that term.
Despite their tisk-tisking, Chappelle is the one to thank for improving their ratings. They've been around 4 million a night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
We'll get to that super chat later. They've been around 4 million viewers a night in this season, and that's down 20% from where they were last fall. So they're clearly struggling. I think that's probably related to the fact that the midterms were happening. It's brought down their average, and now that that's over, they're going to pick up. But it's not unrelated to the fact that they've had this cast change where some beloved cast members have left and they've been replaced at least by one non-binary cast member. And they still have to prove themselves. But Chappelle brought in 4.8 million viewers the night he was on recently. And I went and rewatched some monologues he did in 2016 and 2020. And it seems they always bring him on in November, right after the elections, because he's really good at not just lightening the tone, but also making some serious remarks that resonate with people. It wasn't always my favorite because specifically in one of his monologues, he was talking about his neighbors who are farmers in Ohio and how
poor whites, he says in the recent monologue.
Yeah, he looks down on the poor whites that live in this rural area that he has actually moved to. So I mean, I wasn't a fan of that theme, but they seem to bring him along after the election season to sort of wake people up, bring them back to comedy and lighthearted entertainment. So I think he did exactly that. And now the most popular monologue on SNL's YouTube channel is his from 2016. The second most popular is his from 2020. And now his third monologue for SNL is quickly rising the ranks, and I think it's going to end up being third. Maybe it will even overtake his past ones. I bet it will.
It might eventually.
It's already at like 8.5 million views, and the highest viewed one is 20 million.
The article that I was reading listed it as 6.5 million, so it's already climbed 2 million since then.
And Dave Chappelle isn't solely the reason for bringing in those ratings on his night hosting, because I saw that Amy Schumer brought in 4.3 million viewers, which is
I don't know what that says
insane
about
to me. I don't know. That's bleak for the future of comedy.
Did that say something about bots? Like there's more bots than we think?
Or they're just lying?
Yeah. They're like, yeah, she brought in that many.
I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that monologue. I doubt any of you have either subjected yourselves to that.
I'm guessing we don't have a huge Amy Schumer crossover audience here.
So compare, he brought 4.8 million viewers the other night, and he brought in 9 million viewers when he was on in 2020. I don't think that says anything about Dave Chappelle losing relevancy. That's only about SNL losing relevancy and needing him to do them the favor even more so than before.
Yep. And also he did, do you want to tell him about the fake
Yeah, it
monologue.
Seems that he's pulled a trick on the SNL staff, according to an anonymous source that claims to be an insider on Saturday Night Live. They said that during the dress rehearsal, Dave gave a fake monologue because he didn't want Lorne Michaels or anyone else to know what his real monologue was. So it seems like the first time SNL staff heard his monologue was live on air with the rest of us.
One of the things that I would invite you guys to go back and rewatch it and watch the reaction of the band members behind there.
Yes, someone pointed out that there was a guitarist, a female guitarist, who was the only one wearing a mask, and she did not seem very amused.
No, she did not. And there was another one who looked like he wanted to laugh more, but wasn't sure if he should.
Oh yeah, but Dave Chappelle's always like made people uncomfortable with jokes like that. It's not just this time that that's happened. But yeah, there was one kind of pressed guitarist in the background. And I think that the message Dave Chappelle's irreverence is giving right now is, if you're not ready to make light of all of the shit that we've had to go through for the last 2 years, and if you're not ready to join in on the fun, then you can leave.
Yeah, and nobody.
It feels like a huge relief to hear someone say that.
I will not fault you for leaving. In fact, I won't think twice about it. Like once
Yeah.
you go and you go off into do your own thing where you complain about everything else, that's fine. It's just like don't force your unhappiness onto everyone else by being the scold, as you say, that everyone else. Nobody wants people there that are doing that. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious that even the idea, even if the story is not true, the idea that he would fake an inoffensive monologue to Lorne Michaels and the rest of SNL staff and, hoodwink them, as you said.
Yes.
And then tell these jokes that actually are just poignant observations. I've seen people say Dave Chappelle is the funniest man alive who has never told a joke. And it's because it makes us laugh enough just to hear someone point out the absurdities of the cultural sensitivities that we're living in, that we're imprisoned in right now. Yeah. And it's a huge relief for people to feel noticed and spoken for like that they're not going insane, that they're not alone. And like this anxiety that is reaching a fever pitch right now, the jokes that Chappelle makes help ease that tension. That's why I think this is blowing up right now.
I also don't think I don't think it matters that I don't think it goes away. I think as long as the internet's around, as long as comment sections are around, as long as Twitter is around, which will allow journalists who have a point of view that they want to make to the world, meaning like if they want people to be outraged, they're going to find the 5 tweets on Twitter and then write an article about it. As long as there is mass communication for everyone to have, there will never be a return to normal where, if anything, I would say that things probably weren't all that different. It's just you weren't privy to everyone's feelings about everything all the time.
Right.
So there wasn't a large cauldron of anger and drama for people who write articles to pick from when they want to make their point to get somebody in trouble. I just don't see that changing as long as the internet is a thing. Like you can do that and get away from it yourself by not paying attention to it. We can do that, but
well, I swear the only people who were genuinely upset by Dave Chappelle's monologue were blue check journalists.
Well, $8 are they $8
and the
blue
CEO
checks?
of the ADL.
Yeah,
that was it. And it's like not even any Kanye supporters who were mad that he seemed to be roasting Kanye. It's all manufactured outrage. And by the way, even though it seems like he was roasting Kanye or making jokes at his expense, I think more than that, he was coming to his defense by saying exactly the same things he's been saying, but in a more articulate way because he has more credibility in the public eye right now.
It definitely was. I mean, he would point out that what he said, what you said is, he's like, thinking it isn't crazy. Saying it out loud is crazy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, of course, someone like Dave Chappelle is going to end up in the crosshairs of the establishment. It's because 15 minutes of Dave Chappelle just winging it is funnier than any hour-long planned special that you can find on Netflix by a bunch of these mid comedians that don't know how to appeal to people.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to his credibility. Like when somebody else delivers a special, you have to wonder how many people did these jokes go through before they got to screen. You imagine that Dave Chappelle has more creative control over his material. If you remember when Andrew Schultz bought his special back so that he could release his special without this, the concerns of censorship from Netflix or whichever streaming service. I don't think he ever actually released which streaming service it was that wanted him to censor jokes, but he bought it back from them and then released it and made twice as much money on his own.
That's why I think that cancel culture, or whatever you would like to call it, is actually acting as a cleansing fire for entertainment and comedy right now. Because where the real comedy wants to go, it will go, and people will pay to see it.
Yeah.
There is nothing recognizable as comedy right now on television.
Or movies.
Not
really.
And if anyone is offering it, it will be found.
Yeah. Basically, it's all just shock humor. It's like the only thing you can get now, and observational humor. Like there's some
and gross, crude sex jokes from Amy Schumer.
But that's not actually funny.
Actually
it's just
revolting. It's basically Amy Schumer's sex jokes are the same level of crass as liquid to the face jokes in all of those 2000s parody movies, like barf to the face jokes.
Which was never funny.
The same level of like low brow, like low to the molten core of the earth brow humor.
Jarazno Kid says Mary should be a stand-up comedian. What do you think about that?
I could literally never do that, and I'm a woman.
Why? Well, I wasn't going to point it out, but
women are less funny, or at least they're less funny in that context.
The reason being that it is not evolutionarily necessary for women to develop senses of humor.
That is at least a huge reason
yes.
why. I mean, maybe more than that, it's just because men command more of a presence on stage than women do.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them better at it. But I want to say there seems to be a change in tune from Dave Chappelle, and he's had to go through this cleansing fire as well. And it's improved him as a comedian, even if you thought there was no room to improve.
Just getting away from the trans jokes was a big improvement. Not because I don't think that the stuff he said about it wasn't funny, because I think it was. I think it's that you run the risk of it becoming all you are and focusing too much on that.
Mm-hmm.
And
part of this rumor from Page Six was actually that he had written a joke about the staff member on their writers team that was boycotting him, and that joke got scrapped from the final monologue. I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle's team claims that no one boycotted him. There's no evidence of that. But Celeste Yim did post that complaint on her Instagram story about how transphobia is murder. And it was timely, to say the least. So, assumptions can be made, and maybe they wanted to hide that there was a disagreement behind the scenes. But he decided to get away from the jokes about, gender ideology, as funny as they can be in their own moment. That's one way that I saw him improve. But also he improved upon the way his monologues went in 2016 and in 2020.
In what way?
I mean, I just noticed that in his previous monologues, he drew more clapter than laughs.
Yeah, I noticed that when we were watching it
in
today.
parts, and it was not accomplishing the task that he was brought there to do, which is pull people out of that election insanity and that like mental deterioration that we were experiencing in 2016.
Kind of like Ricky Gervais when he did his first stand-up after lockdowns. He had to give people permission to laugh again. He's like, I want to remind you guys that this
just shake them away.
It's a joke. It's a joke. It doesn't make you a bad person for laughing.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
And something else, I already mentioned this, but like he did in I think his 2020 monologue, he mocked poor white people who live in like rural America who are affected by the opioid crisis and anguish and purposelessness. And he was sort of mocking that's felt in those communities while lifting up his own, and that doesn't feel like comedy to me.
No,
I mean that's fine if those are your beliefs, but that doesn't make people laugh. And I could tell it didn't even make a leftist audience laugh.
Or if it did, if it was meant to be that, it could have been done better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just didn't. It didn't feel right, but this time around, he's done the best job he's done yet.
Yeah, he rode the line perfectly as to what was acceptable to say and what isn't. And that is, I think a lot of people don't. Okay, not a lot of people. I think it's fairly understandable that if you've ever like told a joke and had it not land with your friends, that being a comedian is actually an extremely terrifying thing to do on stage. It is you have to put yourself out there in a way that most people, and I actually believe this is true of actors too, which is why I don't give actors the profession of acting as much of a hard time as a lot of other people do. A lot of people are like, you're paid to say lines and be something you're not, which is a ridiculously overly simplistic view of what they do. Mm-hmm. Emotionally, and which is why I do believe that a lot of them are so easily manipulated emotionally, is because you have to essentially lay yourself bare at the feet of a bunch of people in a room and put yourself out there emotionally. Have you ever tried to, I mean, we've done things here. Like, just think about like how you say some line that you're supposed to say, even if you're recording like an ad and you feel dumb saying it because it's not something you would normally say. And now imagine having to do that about some scene that has a certain amount of emotional intentionality, meaning like you have to get a specific point across. So you have to convey emotion you're not feeling. It has to mean the right thing to the viewers because the director's trying to get a certain point across. And it goes the same with comedy, right? Like that is not an easy thing to to put yourself out there to do. So for somebody like him to do it very well and intelligently proves to you just how difficult that job is and why people respond to it, which is why he's getting 4.8 million viewers per segment rather than 4.0 million viewers to the people who are propped up by a machine and not actually funny. They've just been given a bunch of clout by the name Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, a lot of ordinary people, this isn't a dig, they just don't have the heart, the courage, or the platform to do what Dave Chappelle does, to tell the jokes that he tells. And that's why I think they deserve him and other comics like him as a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
They need to feel like someone is speaking to the pressure they feel and is pushing back on this extreme fragility of
do you think
our age.
There's a way we can solve it? Assuming that we can't get rid of the internet, because then how would we do the show? If the internet is a thing and you're going to have to be subjected to the views of other people and not everyone's going to close their comment sections, content naturally doesn't do as well if the comment sections aren't open because engagement slows down. How do you get ahead and not let this stuff infect your society if we can't stop ourselves from being connected?
I think that Dave Chappelle's monologue actually is showing that there is a step towards a W for that.
Yeah. I guess it would be like you as the audience.
There's this I think that I heard Peter Kreeft call it a capitalism of the spirit in humanity, that like the good, or at least like what nourishes the soul, which comedy is part of that, will win out. The poor imitations of it will lose. And that's just inevitable. It's almost like a nature event. Like it's impossible not to laugh at something that's funny. And that's why I have faith that somehow this crisis we're in, where real, genuine comedy is not allowed to air, is going to solve itself. And I don't think we need to do anything to make that happen.
I think it becomes a generational problem. I think it gets solved generationally, meaning that the people growing up now will hopefully be kind of, it will become a scab that scabs over, and they learn to deal with the criticism and go forward with what they believe with more intent than the people who now timidly say what they mean, and then when they get pushed back, they pull back and they quit. Right? So maybe as the next generation grows up, knowing that it's an inevitability that you're going to be pushed back by people that are outraged by what you say, you will be more willing to stand true to what you believe.
It's different from established comics or celebrities who have witnessed cancel culture, wokeness as a slow burn that they've slowly had to adapt to, rather than just being thrown into the fire. Yep. So yeah, you're right. It could be generational.
As people take over these companies and understand that 5 angry people on Twitter does not mean that you pull something.
Yeah. Speaking of angry people on Twitter, I wanted to talk about this trend, #RIP Jimmy Fallon. So people were posting pictures of James Corden in black and white and saying, "Gone but not forgotten, rest easy king, September 19th to November 15th, 2022, RIP Jimmy Fallon." And I think this is really cracking a joke about the fact that all of these late night hosts that are bland, that live for the clapter.
They love the clapter.
They never make even an attempt at genuine comedy or entertainment.
Yeah.
They're all interchangeable. None of them have personalities. They're all just fake mannequins. They might as well be replaced by AI at this point.
Look at like Adam Carolla does really well on his own just because he doesn't fall into that model. He's just because he came up with Kimmel, right? So they're next to each other, and you can kind of see them as like one going off this way and one going off that way.
Another tweet said, "Can't believe he died of ligma."
Did you see that?
He's resting easy with Harambe up there.
Did you see that Elon Musk brought ligma and Johnson into?
Yeah, I did.
Incredible.
So Jimmy Fallon responded to this trend last night saying, "Elon, can you fix this? #RIP Jimmy Fallon." And then Elon responded today saying, "Fix what?" And then someone quote tweeted Jimmy Fallon's tweet saying, "It's almost like he's still with us."
They did that in an episode of Leverage, where they fake a character's death, and there's this one character in the show named Parker who's just very socially awkward, and like every time she sees the character, she like touches her face. She goes, "It's like you're haunting us."
Owner and founder of Jimmy John's, Jimmy Fallon, has passed away last night. Your sacrifices will never be forgotten.
What are his sacrifices exactly? I ask you.
And of course, they post the picture where half of it is XXXTentacion and the other half is Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
He's resting easy up in the late night show in the sky with Harambe, with John McAfee, with Lil Peep. All the OGs.
I want to know what his sacrifices are. I want to know what Jimmy Fallon has sacrificed for society. I do.
Maybe his dignity.
That's a possible answer.
I bet he feels that way. And now it's just really delicious to see him publicly humiliated on the internet. You guys know I love cyberbullying. This is something I've been doing since I was a wee child.
Shannon says dignity and pride. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely sacrifice dignity and pride.
That's what you sell to get your blue check. You sell your soul. So that was just something I wanted to fly by. I love the internet sometimes, and Twitter seems to be going through a bit of a renaissance.
I did see that they were saying like some of the articles. I love some of like the really like fear mongering articles about the evils of Twitter now. They're like hate comments have jumped up by 54%.
Like how are you even calculating that? How do you categorize a comment as a hate comment?
Yeah. Well, it's like when people say hate speech, it's like, what does that mean?
It's like when people say that they're getting death threats. Everyone who has been on the internet for more than 2 seconds has probably gotten a death threat. It doesn't mean that they're credible. It doesn't mean that you're a victim. And it doesn't mean that they need to be censored. Anyone who disagrees with you is not to be censored because you feel threatened on the internet. Turn off your phone.
It's like the quote, everyone I don't like is a Nazi. Everything I do like is a human right.
Who tweeted just close your laptop, LOL, like was that Tyler the Creator?
It could, yeah, it might have been Tyler. Also, I mean, there's
or maybe it was like
Ethan Van Sciver has said similar things, like when people are like getting really like when he came out in like 2015 as like a Trump supporter, like he's a comic book writer, and like people would send him these just absolutely bonkers messages that were just like the most hateful, and like they were legitimate cries for help, right? Like, and he's like, his response would be like, it'd be a paragraph like this long. And he would just ask them, like, are you okay? Do you have anybody in your life that you can go talk to right now?
Probably not.
But that's the thing. Like, he's like, they're taking it as like he's saying it as like a joke, but he's actually asking them because he's trying to diffuse the situation. He's like, you need to go find people in your life that love you and talk to them. And yeah, they're saying it was Tyler the Creator that said that.
Yes. So. Yeah, it's exactly that. And I think that's maybe one of the best, if not the best tweet that's ever been posted to the platform.
Okay, then I do have this question. Do you think that's a little bit different for kids in high school that are so closely connected that it's not as easy as just like if somebody's saying negative or saying negative things about you and lying about you, that's not the same thing in a social structure like a school where you're going to face the consequences of what's said about you anyways? That's
when parental neglect is involved.
Well,
that's totally different.
We had that thing.
That's totally different from like Jimmy Fallon and other blue check journalists feeling like they're part of a protected class and emailing the communications at Twitter to selectively censor hashtags and trending terms for them.
Wasn't there like a thing for like it was like heroes of COVID, and journalists were like they nominated themselves. They're like, and us for speaking truth to power during COVID.
Because we're so great.
Because we're so fantastic. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.